Hi, hello, welcome to Cambridge Be Ready for the World, hosted by Cambridge University Press. I would like to say thank you so much for being part of this global teaching and learning event. My name is Siti Zaleha, and you can call me Siti, and I am from Malaysia. I will be presenting my session today, which is about, ta-da! My session is about the nuts and bolts of active learning. I will share with all of you here about why I believe that active learning is more important than ever, whether you are teaching online or in person or hybrid. We will explore what active learning means, first and foremost. We will then cover relevant theories about active learning and address an issue about neuromythology. Next up, we will explore how active learning is done in the physical classroom as well as online. I will also share some short and snappy strategies that we can try out after this. And the last one, I will be addressing some concerns and frequently asked questions about active learning. Okay, here comes the first part of the session, defining active learning. Please get yourself a notepad and a pen. Any mobile devices works as well because you have a special task waiting for you. Here comes your task. You will be given a minute to reflect and ponder upon your own thoughts about what active learning means. So please do sit back and reflect, and the thinking time starts now. I do feel guilty sometimes as well, especially when I assign my students with a task and I allocate some thinking time. But then when it's too quiet, I started talking. So in this particular task, you could also consider your learner's age level, the design of learning environments, formative feedback and assessment for learning as supporting contexts in your definition. It's time. If you look at the image shown by the mobile phone screen on the right side, this is a web page from Cambridge Getting Started With website developed by Cambridge Assessment International Education. I highly recommend all of you to visit this website to make full use of these amazing interactive resources about pedagogy, highlighting key areas of teaching and learning, practice such as AFL, language awareness, metacognition, and many, many more. From Cambridge Getting Started With, active learning is defined as a process. Active learning is a process that has student learning at its center, and it focuses on how students learn, not just on what they learn. As a quick summary to define active learning, just remember these three words: how students learn. Take 1 or 2 seconds and look at the colorful thumbs up, as this image may help you to recall these three words after this. Now that we have defined what active learning means, I will bring you all to revisit some relevant theories, and together we will unbox this mystery about neuromythology. active learning is directly proportional to the knowledge of knowing how the brain works. According to Montessori, learning should be relevant within meaningful context. It has to be practical, hands-on, and allow students to move freely in the classroom. And students learn best when they see the usefulness of what they learn and connect it to the real world. Next up, we will look into the social side of learning. The key principles of social constructivism are engaged. Students learn best when engaged in learning experiences rather passively receiving information. The second keyword is social context. Learning is embedded within a social context as students and teachers work together to build knowledge. And the third keyword is experiences. The goal of teaching is to provide experiences that facilitate the construction of knowledge. We finally arrived to the unboxing neuromythology. Before we continue, allow me to define the term learning styles. According to Peschler et al., the term learning styles is used to describe the idea that different individuals differ in the modality of instruction that is most effective to them. It's a popular idea, but almost little research and evidence to back it up. Despite the lack of evidence in support of the concept, learning styles remain ever popular with a great majority of educators. I'm not ashamed of saying this. I was one of the statistics as well. Allow me to quote as Hattie and Yates. They write in Visible Learning and the Science of How We Learn. And they said, there is not any recognized evidence suggesting that knowing or diagnosing learning styles will help you to teach your students any better than not knowing their learning style. Learning depends on what is being taught, and all students benefit when they are learning is being presented in many ways. One of the alternatives to support our students navigating and organizing their thought process when experiencing active learning would be to teach them some useful strategies of metacognition. I would highly suggest for you to visit the Cambridge Getting Started With website to get more access about teaching and learning with metacognitive approach. 4 important points from this session would be: theoretically, active learning must be relevant and practical, connected to real-world connection, while not neglecting the social aspect of learning, and support our students with metacognitive approach. These keywords serve as a powerful reminder to all of us when planning for an active learning activity or strategy in our lessons. We have successfully covered the content and theories linked to active learning. Now, we will look into the setting up the physical classroom to facilitate active learning. Before we proceed, I would like to share one very important definition about learning spaces as published by the Journal of Learning Spaces. Learning spaces are geographical locations designed to support, facilitate, stimulate, or enhance learning and teaching. You have been assigned for another mission. Yay! Please get your pen and paper ready. Any mobile devices are also good to be used as long as you can jot down or type out your feedback as we go through slide by slide. I am now inviting you to think about the flexibility to rearrange the classroom layout to further support the student dialogue, level of participation, as well as purposefully done to support either collaborative work or individual assignment. Please compare and contrast each classroom layout that I will show you after this and consider some other factors as well, such as misuse of tech devices, learners with specific needs, etc. The first one, U-shape. The U-shape, or we call it as well as the horseshoe, this classroom arrangement encourages discussion and makes it easy for the teacher to observe students and offer one-to-one support. It is not practical to use this layout for group work. Here comes layout number 2. It's called the butterfly. This one is probably new to some of you. Let your students work individually, yet they sit together. This middle of the butterfly serves as a one-stop center where students go for extra instructions or a new assignment. The learning resources and extra materials will be spread out on those desks in the middle. Here comes the next layout. This is called the I formation. This arrangement is useful when you are setting up a debate or a discussion. A group of students that will debate will be at the center of the I, and the rest will be the audience surrounding it. Layout number 4 is called the herringbone. This interesting student desk arrangement serves two purposes. It is rows of 2, 3, and 4, but slightly turned so the students face the center of the classroom. This way, students give full attention to the teacher or students at the front of the classroom. And they can join in on a classroom discussion easily. You can also let your students work together with the ones of their rows. And the last one is what I love to call mini horseshoes. Use this layout to encourage discussion in smaller groups. As a practical example, you may introduce some bold statements or problems about your teaching topic and let your students discuss them in their groups. Encourage your students to also come to a consensus or a solution to the problem. Three main points to sum up the setting up of the classroom to facilitate active learning are: 1, the layout must be adaptable to changes to create a more productive learning space to further support active learning activities or strategies planned. 2nd, the arrangement must promote student dialogue to happen. And the 3rd one, rearrangement is done from time to time purposefully to facilitate a specific active learning activity or strategy. We have covered the first practical part of implementing active learning in the physical classroom. Now let's move on to looking at active learning being done in online lessons. Two key areas that I have experienced and explored a lot when running online lessons would be technical difficulties. Wi-Fi issues, tackling some ad hoc tech issues requires time and understanding from our side as teachers. Second one would be time-consuming resources. As you want to make your learning online engaging and involve students to participate as actively as they can, we have to experiment with a lot of different online platform resources. And sometimes introducing a new activity will take some time. The only way to know this is by trying it out with our class and learn through the experiences. I would like to share a clip from one of my online lessons. In this particular video, you can hear the learners' input when they think through ideas and developing their own understanding. The sketch and tell review. Basically, there are two other students who actually covered most of the triangles, but I didn't, pick their working yesterday. So I think I want to do justice to that. Let's start with the first one. Ahmad, are you there? Let's label it. I'm going to label it now. A, B, and C. Okay, Ahmad, can you name me each of the triangles you drew yesterday? What is
A is a right angle triangle, B is an equilateral triangle, and C is an isosceles.
Ah, okay. So I assume this is actually the box, the square where it's 90 degrees.
Wait, Miss Siti, the right angle triangle can be also, the name is supposed to be right angle isosceles triangle because two sides are also the same.
Ah, wow. Okay, Yihao, that's a fantastic contribution there. Okay. I will draw you two. Okay. This is this is example 1, and this is example 2 with what Yihao said. Okay. I'm sure all of you know this, but this is like the right opportunity to actually recall. Okay. So what Yihao is saying is we call this one as right angled triangle. And this one, Yihao, what do you call the next one as?
Right angle isosceles triangle, I think. I don't know.
Right angled Okay. 4 key takeaways from me to work on implementing active learning approaches when teaching online would be to encourage peer learning to happen more frequently. And since it's an online lesson, consider some time for students to respond to you back, whether by chat or using their voice through their mics. Don't forget to offer instant feedback whenever the opportunity arises. If possible, record and share the highlights of the lesson with your learners. Bingo! In this session, I will share some short and snappy active learning strategies with all of you. The first one would be the pause procedures. To use pause procedure, arrange for pauses of 2 to 3 minutes between every 10 to 15 minutes of the lesson time. During these brief breaks, encourage students to discuss or rework their notes in pairs to clarify key points covered. The second one is the muddiest point technique. This technique involves asking students to write notes on the most unclear element of a given assignment. For example, what have you found to be the muddiest point so far in simplifying algebraic fractions? The third one is game-based learning platform. This strategy adds depth and differentiation to the teaching and learning process. To name a few of the game-based learning platform, we have Kahoot, Quizzes, Khan Academy, Padlet, Quizlet, and Nearpod. I'm sure there's many more out there that many of us have tried out as well. And the last one is the devil's advocate approach. Ask one or more students to take the opposing side of an argument or point of view being discussed in a session. A little bit of encouragement to all of you, myself included, to take one brave step and try a new active learning activity or strategy in our lesson would be, 1, to challenge ourselves. If you say no, you will not be able to see the added value of an active learning strategy to yourself and your students. Second, don't worry if it's not going to work out as planned. We tweak and learn from the experience. And the third one, once we feel confident and happy to give back to our teaching community, then sharing best practices is the next step forward. It could be in your department, offering PD session for your colleagues in your school, or you can also have like a virtual teaching and learning journal online via Twitter or LinkedIn, for example. Ta-da! We have reached the final objective for this session, which is addressing some concerns about active learning. Let's get to it. The first question, is active learning just a bunch of fun and games? It's fun and still be worthwhile. Many active learning techniques present students with unusual challenges that require much hard work. Second one, does active learning focus so much on activity for its own sake that students don't reflect on what they are learning? This is a real concern. It is often valuable for teachers to offer a short lesson after an active learning activity to connect what students have experienced and learned. The third question, can you group students to death using active learning? Yes, it can happen. Overusing groups prevents students from having enough chances to learn things individually and little to no time for entire class discussion session. And the last question I have, is there a danger that students will misinform each other in group-based active learning method? Such a valid question. The answer is, there is some danger to that. It is a must for teachers to always review material with the entire class afterward to align the students' learning with the learning outcomes. A glance through of the frequently asked questions about active learning would be to remember that active learning offers unusual challenges to the students, to remember to always offer short session to reflect and to clear any gaps in learning as well as misconceptions, and say no to overusing groups for active learning. We will quickly summarize the whole session. I want you to try and recall some of the key highlights that you can recall and remember when seeing a specific image that I will show. Now you can see how by focusing on how students learn and key takeaways from the theories for active learning to be planned is by considering the 4 factors. It has to be relevant and practical, real-world connection, Don't forget the social context and experience while adding a touch of metacognitive approach. When setting up the physical classroom to facilitate active learning, the 3 key points are: it has to be adaptable, the layout must promote student dialogue, and think about purposeful rearrangement to better suit a specific active learning strategy. When implementing active learning strategies online, please do encourage peer learning, allow some time during interaction with students to offer instant feedback, and share the highlights of the lesson as a recorded video file with your students. When trying out a new active learning activity, please take it as a self-challenge. We grow as we tweak and learn from the experiences. And don't forget to share your best practices with your teaching community. And the last one, just say no to overusing groups in active learning strategies. Now you can see the importance of knowing the nuts and bolts of active learning. And I hope that you will take some time after this session to reflect upon any part of this presentation that gets your cognitive attention the most. I am super keen to network and learn from each and every one of you. And if you wish to do so, please do scan the QR codes at the bottom right side of the screen. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope that you will enjoy all the upcoming sessions in this Be Ready for the World with Cambridge. Until then, stay safe and have a good day. Bye-bye.